Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation, and welcome along. We've had a couple of weeks off, but we are back here with the 5 Yard Dynasty show, and I am ever so pleased to be joined by my co-host, Hannah. Hannah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Dan. It's been a super busy month. Everything is now over, and I'm just really excited to be able to concentrate on fantasy and football and just dig into everything with you. I really enjoyed the draft. I thought it was great fun. I thought there was lots of movement and all sorts of things went on that I wasn't necessarily expecting. So looking forward to digging into it with you this week.
Yeah, the draft was exciting. I mean, you said about lots of movement. I saw a thing yesterday that said the Texans only made one pick in its intended slot, and that was the 102. Every other pick was moved up, down, round, about, in and out. So even got to the second round, right? There was that many trades of people moving up and down. Any mock you'd have done in the second round, you couldn't have fathomed that happening. So I don't know why we do mock drafts sometimes, because they get thrown out the window within 20 minutes. I saw hundreds of mock drafts. I never saw one of them where the Texan picked at 2 and then traded up and picked at 3.
No,
did you?
No, well, absolutely not. And as you say, I don't think anyone could have expected that. And I think we were all surprised that happened on the night, to be honest. And we had, I've had this debate with a number of different people. Should they have done it? Should they have given up that much for a defensive player, particularly because we know they're probably not going to be that great next year, and that pick is probably going to be pretty high because I think it's their pick that they gave away. So interesting thing. It would be interesting to see how it plays out ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Will Anderson was, for me, the best player in the draft, regardless of position. So they've got their franchise quarterback, hopefully now in CJ Stroud, and they've got the linchpin of their defense that could hopefully be there for a long time. So I understand them doing it, and fair play to them for doing so. Just briefly, before we get into some of the dynasty landing spots of sort of fantasy relevant players, you're a Bengals fan. How do you feel the Bengals draft went?
Overall, I was pleased with it. It was not necessarily what I expected. I thought we would certainly have a tight end, and I thought we'd probably have another offensive lineman, and we didn't come away with either, which was slightly surprising. But overall, I think we drafted for value, and I'm pleased with the value that we got. It'd be interesting to see where everyone slots in ultimately, but overall, I'm quite pleased with it. What about you, Dan? And what about your Bucks? Happy, not happy, indifferent?
No, I'm okay with the players we got. We had quite a few holes. I think we was crawling out for a safety, which never came, a running back potentially, but we've picked one up in free agency since. So the amount of edge rushers that we took got me. I mean, we've got 7 edge rushers listed on our waiver on our depth chart at the minute, which I think's a little excessive. But no, overall, we drafted old school. We drafted big guys in the lines, in the trenches. We're something to build off. So no QB, no running back for us, which was always interesting with where we're at. So yeah, we shall see how it plays out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting season.
It is. So should we get to the draft? And guys, if anyone's listening and you're watching live, drop us your thoughts or your questions. You can go to the comments bit if you're on YouTube or Facebook. Twitter we can't see on here, unfortunately, but yeah, give us your thoughts, your opinions on some of the guys as we go through them. So we're going to go position by position, look at some of the first early round draft choices and the landing spots and how we feel from a fantasy and a dynasty point of view. It shapes out for them, right? So Carolina, obviously pre-draft, traded up, took the number 1. Yeah, Nathan has mentioned there was no Keaton Mitchell. That is a sad face. I will get onto that at the end because he's in my special mention segment, Nathan, at the end. So we'll see how that goes. Carolina, though, Bryce Young, probably the best quarterback for me in the draft. There's no surprise there. Was there, Hannah, for you?
No, not at all. I mean, there was discussions very early on in the process. Is it going to be CJ Stroud? Is it going to be Bryce Young? But I think, by the last couple of weeks, it all shaken out that, it was highly likely to be Bryce Young. I think ultimately, the biggest question mark we have with him is his size, isn't it? I personally think that if he manages to stay on the field, I think he will be better than CJ Stroud. Now, there are lots of different opinions out there on that, but as I say, I think if he can stay on the field and not get injured, I think he will be better, both in real life and from a fantasy perspective. I just think that he can create more when things go wrong. I think he's a better creator than CJ Stroud. So ultimately, I think he will be better as a player. My concern with him is his pass catches currently. He has a little bit a hodgepodge room.
That's surprising.
At this point, I mean,
I view it differently. So I view so many number one picks. Trevor Lawrence, for instance, being the one before, had a poor season in Jacksonville. Many will put that down to the coach, I guess, at the time and what happened there. But I don't feel they supported him. Zach Wilson at the Jets at the time didn't really get the supporting cast around him. And we see that often. I actually think in the offseason, yes, it's a whole brand new offense. But they've drafted Panthers previously very heavily on defense. I had a draft, I think it was a year before last, where they only took defensive players and solidified that side of the ball. They've not gone out and gone, right, if we're going to do the 101, what do we need to do if we're going to pick a QB there? We need to give them help. And they've gone and got experience and quality in my eyes that maybe isn't top-notch quality. I don't think there's anybody there that actually is headline breaking. But I think that all guys that do a job, they went and got Miles Sanders at running back. More than capable, 3-down back, has proven that for the Eagles. Adam Thielen, coming in from the Vikings, obviously. Last year, he had over 100 targets. He knows his job. He knows what he needs to do. DJ Shark, they brought in as well as an outside receiver. Again, somebody else that I'm a big fan of. If he can stay fit and healthy, which is huge for him, I think he's a very good deep threat player. They brought in Hayden Hurst at tight end, who you'll know very well. He's a decent pass-catching tight end. And not only that, they then went and drafted a wide receiver in the second round as well, didn't they? And Jonathan Mingo. So I feel like they've give him more opportunity to thrive and succeed.
I think my worry is that they're either old, to Adam Thielen, or they're not necessarily proven.
Adam Thielen's a lot younger than me, Hannah, so be careful when you're throwing out old accusations.
I think he's probably younger than me as well. But in terms of, his production I think personally has, regressed over the last season or two.
Yep.
I agree. I think it's good that they have some veteran presence in there that's going to help stabilize things. But I just don't think there isn't a true difference maker there that he can reliably go to.
Yep.
Whenever
there's no superstar. I agree. There is no superstar. Adam Thielen's missed he missed 10 games in 9 years. That's pretty dependable.
It is, but this is, I hate to bring the age out again, but this is the point when they start to break, right?
Yeah.
At this age.
Agreed.
So I don't know. They may be absolutely fine, like you say. When we actually end up talking about CJ Stroud, he hasn't got quite as good a, pass catching core as Bryce Young does. And like you say, picking up the 101, I suppose, what do we expect? Although, to be fair, they moved up. They weren't the worst team in the kind of league last year. I think certainly the rest of, the defense and the rest of the team is pretty good around them. I just think it's a shame that they lost DJ Moore, because I think he would have been the guy that, could have really
make a difference.
Yeah.
I agree. DJ Moore is quite put him in the elite tier, but he's a very accomplished receiver in that regard. But, he could have had Chuba Hubbard at running back. He could have had Shia Smith and Laviska Shenault at wide receiver, and he hasn't. What he's got is a lot better, and they didn't have to do those acquisitions in free agency in the offseason, is what I'm saying. And actually, they've gone, right, we're going to spend the capital to go to get him. These guys are going to help him. Adam Thielen's 9 years in the league. He is going to be able to sit down and help this guy. He's going to be able to help him with his reads. DJ Shark, similar. Hayden Hurst, similar. These guys are going to be able to put their experience onto Bryce Young and give him an opportunity to succeed. I'm not saying they're going to go out and win a Super Bowl year one. They've got a fair shot at the NFC South, but that's more because of the state of the NFC South than anything. But I don't know. I just feel like if Bryce Young is your franchise QB for the next 15 years, they've started him on the right foot to build confidence, not to have a poor year, not to go 2-15 because the team around him are so poor because they spent the capital to get him. I feel like they've given him a shot at 500.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. And I think ultimately they will build up, a more explosive, core.
Yep.
It's going to take time. But yes, I agree that, the veteran presence there is really going to help him. And like you say, we know there are some reliable pass catchers there. There are some unproven that if they, come off and, play to their talent, then it may well be actually quite a decent wide receiver car. But at this point, we just don't know.
Correct.
But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And I think his situation is probably much better than CJ Stroud's is. But I just think it's unfortunate that they haven't got more there, because I think that would have been, that little cherry on the top, really.
It would. So you mentioned CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud obviously went second to the Houston Texans. Perfectly fine pick. I totally understand that. There was a lot of rumor before the draft as to who they were going to do and what they were going to do. D'Amico Ryans and the Texans played it very close to their chest. Very close to their chest. Nothing got out of the organization. Apparently only 2 people knew what they was doing all along. They'd settled on CJ Stroud a long, long time ago. And the rest of it was all smoke screens. And as the draft transpired, trading up to 3 as well to get Will Anderson, they had a lot in their locker that they'd agreed on in-house. But CJ Stroud as a QB, we mentioned he hasn't got the weapons now that Bryce Young has been given. He's looking at, I don't know, Robert Woods. Is Robert Woods still a thing currently?
I'm not convinced.
I'll take Adam Thielen or DJ Shark over Robert Woods at the minute, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
Nico Collins, huge fan of Nico Collins. And I'm intrigued to see John Mechie. John Mechie obviously went through a lot of health issues last year. Incredibly horrible for him to deal with. He's back. He's been passed. He's able to play football activities. So he's going to be intriguing, right? He's been in the league. He was drafted last year. Never been to the practice field with them. He's going to be a new body. He's going to be like an extra draft body. He's coming in to the Texans. So that's going to be exciting for them. They've kind of got a freebie person there.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Woods is there to be that veteran presence, isn't he? Because everyone else is pretty young and pretty unproven. I think Nico Collins is okay. I don't have I don't think he's that great.
Okay.
My concern is where and who is the wide receiver one on this team?
Yep.
To me, there doesn't appear to be one at this current time, which is the concern at this point for me there. So I think he's going to struggle more in year one, which I think we probably know that. We know the Texans are in a worse place than the Panthers. I think he will be a solid QB in the league. My suspicion depends what he does. Like, we know that he can run, but he chooses not to do that. So the question is he going to continue to play like that in the NFL? And if that's the case, then he is a pocket passer. So ultimately, I think he will be in the low end range of, potentially low end QB1, around where we're looking at Kirk Cousins, that kind of range. I think ultimately he'll end up being. If he decides he's going to use his legs a bit more, or they scheme him that way, then maybe he will be a bit higher there. But I just don't see him at this stage, being a higher end QB1 as he has played in college.
Here's a question for you then. Does he start week 1 over Davis Mills?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You feel he does?
Yeah, definitely. Drafted him at the 102. I think he definitely does.
Yeah, see, that's the thing for me. Like, I don't mind Davis Mills. I think Davis Mills has done a really admirable job being there, and I think he's a bit harshly treated at the minute, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're right. 102 draft capital says to me they have to start him. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they did keep him back 6-7 weeks to whenever their buy falls, and then look to put Stroud in after that.
I don't think they do it. I mean, Davis Mills is fine. To be honest, the thing to me at this point, there is no reason to keep him out. You know, I think you drafted him highly. I think you got to play him. You got to get in that NFL experience. If it's terrible to start with. But I think the more reps he gets, the more things will settle. That their O-line isn't, that bad.
Nope.
You know, they've got a pretty good one, so that should help keep him clean. It's just whether his wide receivers can get to where they need to be, and are good enough to do that. And that we don't know at this point. So I don't see a world where they would trot out Davis Mills over him. But you never know.
And then I guess the wild card one we saw come in at 4 to the Colts after the Texans trade up to 3 was Anthony Richardson, the Florida Gator. This guy that had this combine and excelled at the combine. There's no two ways about it. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Just quickly go back. Stacey thinks Mills will start first week. Stacey knows his stuff. I agree, Stacey. I totally agree. I think Mills will play to the bye type period, which for fantasy makes it a horrendous option this year.
I just don't. I think he is too NFL ready for him not to play, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
But we'll see. I might be totally wrong.
We will.
I would be surprised.
So Anthony Richardson coming at 4, the wild card, the Florida Gators say excelled at the combine. The hype was on Richardson coming in. All sorts of crazy rumors about where he was going to go. He ended up 4 to the Colts. I am not a huge Anthony Richardson fan. I am a fan of Anthony Richardson landing at the Colts for fantasy purposes. I think that's a fair assumption. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I for me personally, I mean, he has a lot of improving to do as a passer, doesn't he? But
a lot.
So like from a true NFL perspective, I do have my reservations about him. However, from a fantasy point of view, I mean, there is no denying that a rushing QB has an extremely high floor, and he is extremely athletic and has great athleticism, which makes me think that if he finds a gap in that defense and gets going, there's a chance he can take that to the house, So I think he's going to have a very high floor, and he has the highest ceiling if he manages to develop. That's the big if, isn't it? I feel much more confident drafting Anthony Richardson in my rookie drafts post-draft than I did pre-draft. My big concern with him was that he would end up going somewhere and sit behind someone for at least a year. And my worry was that they would realise that actually that this guy is not going to develop and he is not going to be an NFL starter and he would never see the field. The fact that he has been drafted 1 that high, 2 to the Colts who have Gardner Minshew, who realistically is not going to be the starter for the full year, and 3 they have Shane Steichen, who we know has worked with dual threat QBs in Philly. I think this is the perfect place for Anthony Richardson, and I think if he is going to develop, this is the perfect place for him to do that, and it's down to him now.
Anthony Richardson's don't come along very often. A 6'4", 240-pound QB who runs a 40 in 4.4. I mean, wide receivers would like to run a 40 in 4.4. It doesn't happen often. The problem is he overthrows his receivers about 45% of the time. I think it was last season in college. So I love it for Richardson. I think you can learn accuracy and you can learn your throwing mechanics and technique and improve it. You can't improve raw speed and the ability to rush and take a hit and run, and he has that. And that's why I think he went this high, despite the throwing flaws, was purely because of that. As somebody believes they coached the rest of it into him. Anthony Richardson, for me, as you say, is the highest ceiling of these quarterbacks. If they can get their mechanics right and they can get him to hit these receivers more often than not, he could be the next phenomenon within fantasy quarterbacks if he can get it right for me. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, great. I think their floors are higher. The ceiling for Richardson for me is where it is. Look at Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts came in, he had a rough first year. There was a lot of talk about would he make a second year, would he make a third? He's gone from strength to strength to strength. Josh Allen's another. He started off with his struggles and just grown from strength to strength. And I think Richardson will follow a very similar career trajectory. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 years if we're sitting here going, this is it. He's got to perform now or he's going to be out. This is it. And I don't know. I think he could do it. He's still only 20 as well, remember? So he's on a young age of quarterbacks coming in here. So raw talent, he's got plenty of time to coach and learn and so on, unlike someone like Hendon Hooker, who we'll get onto, I'm sure. Anthony Richardson has that youth on his side here. So depending on where he landed was a big factor for me on Anthony Richardson. The fact he's gone to the Colts, which has one of the best offensive lines in the league, a solid defense behind him, sound receivers in Michael Pittman. I like it. I like it for Anthony Richardson. I don't like it for Michael Pittman because he might get 100 targets, but he's going to be overthrown on 60 of them, which is incredibly worrying. But Anthony Richardson, I like him at the Colts. I like him a lot. So 3 QBs, first 4 picks, Hannah. Rookie drafts. Where are you pitching these guys at now? What's your sort of strategy with them? You're imagining obviously all 3 are starters week 1, are you?
That's Anthony Richardson. I'm not totally sure on, to be honest. I think he will start this year for sure. The question is, when are they going to put him out there? And I don't know on that one. They kind of are putting across the message that they're going to start him early, which I am fine with. I understand that he needs the reps, but I don't know whether it'll be week 1 or not. Okay. But to be honest, in my Dynasty drafts, my rookie drafts, I'm actually not bothered if he doesn't start week 1.
Correct.
I am drafting him for his ceiling. So I'm happy to wait for him to get on the field. I personally would draft him above the other 2.
Correct. Me too. I say correct, like there's a right and wrong. There isn't. I agree.
Because I actually think he has the highest floor because of his rushing ability, and I think he has the highest ceiling. Yeah. My concern with him was, would he ever get on the field? And that answer has been, I have that answer now. He is going to be on the field. Now, his longevity might not be that long if he can't prove that he can pass, but he, I think, will certainly be in that QB1, not overall QB1, but, our QB1, I think, when he's on the field because of what he could do with his legs.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Even with a average completion percentage, you'd imagine he's going to get some rushing touchdowns on the year. He's not going to fall into the elite tier, but he's going to be, I don't know, the QB 8 to 12 type range of people, with potential probably on that to still grow and to still get better and to still develop, which is crucial. I'm with you. If I've got a low-end draft pick, whether it's been acquired or whether it's been earned, I say earn, you don't earn a low-end draft pick, do you? Unless you de-earn. I don't know how that works, but I'm a fan of taking best player available, taking value where the value is there. You're in a super flex rookie draft. Anthony Richardson's on the board. I'm taking him over all 3 because, one, as you say, the upside is huge. The selling ability, if he hits that upside early on, and you don't want Anthony Richardson, is a lot more favourable than the others. I think you'll get more and cash more for it, which, if you're in a state of rebuild, is handy. Take him early on, have half a season of fantastic football, and do what you need to do if you don't believe he's going to have the longevity because of his passing. But I think you'll cash him out for more than you would Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, what have you got to lose? You are one of the worst teams in your draft. If you have earned that pick. So you have to take risks at this point, right? You know, if you want to try and get back into competing, you've got to, you know, go with upside, I think. And like you say, they either become, you know, someone who is a starter on your team, or you sell them for lots of assets and you can build your team that way. So I think you have to go with him next.
A couple of others, just quick mention. Will Levis, the man of day one, sat there getting sadder and sadder and in the green room. Boy, did I feel for him at the end. Ended up at the Titans. Hendon Hooker ended up at the Lions. Stetson Bennett ended up at the Rams. Anything with them? Any guys appeal to you with them landing spots?
I do think that Levis has the chance to become the starter next season, depending on how he develops over this year. I don't think that they are going to get rid of I can't think of his name.
Tannehill?
QB. Exactly. Tannehill. I don't think they're going to get rid of Tannehill this season. I think they're going to play him. They might, if Levis proves, you know, to be an amazing player, I think they may start him later on in the season. So I think he has a chance of becoming the QB1. I think they traded up for him and took him for a reason. And I think they want to see what they've got with him. So I think he has a chance, but I'm not really excited about him, to be honest. But I may be proven wrong. There. Hendon Hooker, not really interested in. You know, he is on the older side. He had a major injury. Yes,
he's also gone somewhere with the Lions where Goff did well, and it looks like they're doing contract talks as well now to extend him. I think it takes a lot to get Jared Goff at the minute in that locker room.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't think he'll be starting this year. Like you say, it really depends on what happens with Goff's contract. But I can certainly see him as being a good backup. So, you know, I think it's a nice spot for him to be, you know, as a backup. I don't expect anything from him.
Cool. Stetson Bennett at the Rams? She's out. Look, she's out. I actually don't mind this one. I think if you're in a Superflex league and you've got a late round rookie pick and Stetson Bennett's on the board, we talk about taking value. QBs in Superflex league carry the value. Stetson Bennett will start games this year, and he will start games this year because Matt Stafford's arm and elbow will get injured. It always does. He has trouble staying on the field lately. He isn't getting younger or healthier. Stetson Bennett at some stage this season will take to the field and have the opportunity to earn that starter jersey.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't expect him to earn it, but you never know.
But if you've got a late third, fourth round rookie pick,
sell him,
your chances of finding somebody of any value at that stage is remote. Take the quarterback. Matt Stafford does his elbow in. He's out for 4 weeks. Stetson Bennett starts, has an amazing first 2 weeks. Cash him in. Move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly worth it. Obviously, the other risk is he starts, he's terrible, and then you've not.
But it's a fourth round pick.
Exactly.
90% of them aren't going to see the field.
But I would make sure that I did not draft him. I would never reach for him.
No.
Ever. Because I don't think he's a surefire hit. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
I will have a lot more Stetson Bennett than I will Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. Makes sense. It does make sense. But yeah.
You're not sold on Stetson Bennett, are you?
Not massively, no. But no, I totally get what you're saying. You know, at that point, what have you got to lose? You know.
Stacey says it sounds like we need to make a bet on a Rams QB. Stacey, I'm not saying Hendon Hooker. No, not Hendon Hooker. Stetson Bennett will be the Rams QB. That is Matt Stafford's job. I'm saying that Stetson Bennett will get on the field because Matt Stafford can't stay there every game. If Hannah wants to bet on Stetson Bennett being the QB1 for the Rams, I'll take that bet. But I think we both agree that actually it's Matt Stafford's job.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I don't think Matt Stafford will play beyond this season. So I mean that whole team is
Stetson Bennett 3-4 games does okay.
Well, they might keep him for a season only because they want to tank for someone else, but you never know.
Awesome. So moving on from QBs, I think we've covered most of them there. We're going to look at a few running backs. Obviously, there's a lot. First round, Bijan Robinson to the Falcons at 8. and Jamar Gibbs went to the Lions, rather surprisingly, I think, for many, at 12. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, I mean, Bijan, we've been talking, or everyone in the Dynasty community has been talking about him for months and months and months,
Yep.
and I think the high draft capital just kind of showed, what we all kind of thought. And I think it's a great landing spot for him, to be honest. I think it's going to be great fun. I think Arthur Smith is going to do a lot with him. And I like it. I think it's going to be good. If I was the Falcons, I wouldn't have picked him because I think running back at this high is a cherry on the top pick, and they need a lot more than a cherry on the top at this stage.
The Falcons at 8 were not a running back away from competing.
Exactly. It wouldn't be my choice, but for Dynasty, I'm quite pleased with this.
I love the landing spot for Bijan. When you think of where he could have ended up, the Falcons averaged 167 rushing yards per game last year.
It was the most, wasn't it, I think?
I think it was the second most, maybe, but it was up there with Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier. You are now putting a guy that is exponentially better than those guys in there. Huge upside. I can see him getting I can see him getting close to 300 carries this year. Just abusing him. Adding the fact that he's a more than capable receiving back as well. Personally, he's in the NFC South. Don't like it. He is a talent. We've just got rid of CMC out of our division, and BJ Robinson comes in. On the flip side, from fantasy point of view, which is what was important here, obviously, I don't think there was many better landing spots than the Falcons. If you're sat with your 101 in your fantasy draft, and this talk, as you say, for months has been BJ's 101. It doesn't matter where he goes. Doesn't matter where he goes. Well, he actually couldn't have gone to many better places, to be honest with you. That was kind of the sweet spot for me. It takes away any doubt. There was no doubt in my mind from then that if you're 101 and you're not trading out and you're not trying to get back to get QB instead or whatever, Superflex League, 1 QB, BJ and Robinson, straight away.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I would definitely take him at the 101 in any league that I am in. I know when we were on last time, Evan disagreed with me, but I just think that Bijan is a generational talent, and people have hyped him up to be that generational talent. So I think he will have that kind of trade capital, and I think that no matter what happens, I think that will remain high. So I think that I would.
We should do his ACL week 2 now, Hannah.
Yeah, but he will still keep, I think, very high trade value because
Breece Hall has now, to be fair. Breece Hall has. Breece Hall's still a top 5 running back, right?
He barely lost any kind of trade value, and I think it will be exactly the same with Bijan. So
Me too.
I think you should take him because I think he's probably the most surefire player out of all of these rookies that's going to go out there and is going to perform and perform well.
Gibbs to Lions at 12, surprised in that? Because at the time they still had DeAndre Swift on the books.
Yeah, I was surprised it was so early, to be honest. But he is also a multi-talented back. He is not in the realms, I don't think, of Bijan, but I think he has got some good talent. Obviously, this high draft capital has helped him. And obviously now they've got rid of Swift. I could tell at the end of last season they weren't feeling Swift. They just didn't really want to let him onto the field. And, obviously they can say, he's got injuries, etc. But I could tell they were kind of going off him. So I think now they're going to have a bit of like a double-headed backfield, to be honest, with Montgomery and Gibbs. The question is who's going to take what roles. Now,
Gibbs isn't that big.
So I mean, I think Gibbs is going to be the pass catcher.
Correct.
And obviously, I think David Montgomery is going to be more of the 2-down kind of role. The question is who does what in the red zone, because this is where we're going to get the highest. These are where the big touches are.
The
right?
return. Yeah, as Jamal Williams proved last year.
Yeah, I mean, the
on this
question is
offense?
obviously my only question is if draft Gibbs really, really high, are they going to do some sort of way to kind of scheme him red zone touches? You know, is he going to catch the ball rather than them running him in? I don't know. Depends how close they get to the goal line, all that kind of thing. So I do think he has value, and I certainly would. You know, with the draft capital he got, I would still take him highly in the first round.
Yeah.
But you know, at this time, he's not a 3-downer, is he? I don't think he's going to be a 3-downer.
He's not currently. I don't think he will be next year. And I think they know that. They've got David Montgomery in there that can do that job. Jamar Gibbs, for me, could be one of the best pass receiving backs we've seen in recent years coming into the league. So I like that. I do think we will see a lot of scheming in the red zone. I don't think he's going to do the 2-yard out carries unless they're trying to disguise what they're doing and they shift him out late on movements and so on. I think he was more than adequate of that. I think we'll see a year where Montgomery does the dirty work, Gibbs does the fancy bits, and they use the year to build his experience, maybe build his bulk, lightly use him on reps, and see if he's got a 3-down back potential in him.
Yeah, I mean,
forward.
I could see him having like a Ramondre Stevenson type role. I'm not sure. Obviously, at this point now, Ramondre potentially is becoming more of a 3-down-esque back. You know, the backfield has changed. I'm not sure whether Gibbs will ever become that just because of his size. But if he's getting lots of targets, we know that PPR points really matter in PPR leagues. So, you know, I still think he will hold good value. I think he is definitely the RB2 in this rookie class. You know, and that draft capital has confirmed that. But yeah, ultimately where he sits in the kind of overall running back ranks, I think potentially he will be a little bit lower while we kind of figure out exactly how much he's going to be used and what his role is going to be. Because we all got really excited about DeAndre Swift, and he did, you know, first season he did do quite a bit, and then he kind of dropped off a bit, you know. I would hope they use Gibbs more, and he will get, you know, quite a lot of touches and things, but I think I would be a little bit cautious just while I kind of figure out exactly what he's going to be doing.
I see it. That Montgomery will come in for the grunt work and Gibbs will take over almost Jamal Williams' year. And if you get Jamar Gibbs doing catching work and red zone work, I think that's a fantastic return on him in his rookie year.
Yes, I need to see that he's going to get that red zone work. I don't know at this point.
Well, you don't have a chance, Hannah. It's rookie draft season now.
No, I'm very happy to draft him as my RB2 in rookie drafts. In startups, I mean, the thing about the whole RB landscape, to be honest, at the minute is a total mess. So he probably will be reasonably high in the running back rankings just because of how terrible the position is at this point. And, you know, we're losing a lot of those 3-down backs. But yeah, I just hope that he is used like we expected Swift to be used when he was drafted.
Fair enough. After those two, though, they kind of became a mix of people's rankings as the next running back on board. And I guess a lot of people with the draft capital on the landing spot, because not nearly as many as we thought would go day 2, may have shifted their rankings around. Now, a couple of the people in that bit, Zach Charbonnet ended up at the Seahawks, Kendre Miller went to the New Orleans Saints, and Devon Achane to the Dolphins. Where do you sit on those kind of next tier of guys?
I mean, I think Zach Charbonnet is I think he is the third best player in this draft, but I think he got an unfortunate landing spot.
Okay.
In that I think he had the potential to do more than I think he will do in the Seahawks backfield, because they have the 2 guys now. They were both drafted in the second round, you know, a year apart. I think they will use them both. And I just think that they will kind of eat each other's value a little there. So I think that is a bit of a shame that he didn't go to somewhere that was a little bit more open.
Okay.
I think the other two guys had some very intriguing landing spots, to be honest. Like, I think A-Chain, we know he's small and he's slight, but we know what the Dolphins are like, and I think they could very easily scheme him lots of touches and give him chance to go out into the open field rather than, he's not going to be between the tackles runner.
Yep.
But I think they'll be able to scheme him up, and I think he could probably do quite a lot in that.
I think he'll learn a lot from Jeff Wilson as well.
Yeah, so I actually think that going to the Dolphins has improved his kind of capital, really, because of the landing spot. We know he's small, we know he's slender, so he needed to go somewhere that would use him properly, and I think they really will there. Miller's intriguing because obviously we know that New Orleans has some issues at running back this season, most likely, because we know that Kamara,
very delicately put. Well done, Hannah.
Kamara's probably going to get suspended, isn't he? Like, obviously, we've got Jamal Williams. We know that he is, steady, dependable.
Yep.
But I think Miller certainly has a chance to play his way into the rotation there. So again, I certainly think he has a chance to see the field this season. So I think all three of them are intriguing. I'm a bit disappointed that Charbonnet.
Do you wish Charbonnet had gone to the Saints? Switch them two around.
I think it would have been nice, wouldn't it? I think you would just feel a bit more confident that he would get more of those high value touches.
Yep.
I don't know exactly how the Seahawks backfield is going to play out and when they're going to use each. But we do know he loves his ring backs and they like to run. So, he will get, playing time. But as I say, I just think that they're going to eat into each other's kind of fantasy value, really, which is a shame.
Fine. I mean, of those mid guys, I really liked Kendre Miller. I have him more in a similar tier. But the fact he's at the Saints, for me, just pips him above Charbonnet at the minute in terms of they're in the same tier, but in my rankings. Because I think Miller's got an easier path to the field. And I think at that level, you need the opportunities. I think Kamara will get suspended. Jamal Williams is fine, but he's not going to be a 3-down back. So if Kamara goes out, Kendre Miller will have a role, and he could have a role as early as week 1 in that offense. So I'm going to gamble on that and take Kendre Miller and hope he can earn his opportunity and hold it down in that regard. Even if Charbonnet does well, as you say, there's 2 decent backs there. Ken Walker's shown what he can do. And he isn't no slouch himself. So,
yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about Charbonnet is obviously if there is an injury, then
it is the Seahawks backfield. Seahawks running backs love injuries.
Exactly. So if Kenneth Walker gets injured, I think he can very quickly and easily take on a big workload, and do pretty well. So I think he is more likely to get a big roll through injury than any of the others. I think even if, I think with Kamara being suspended, I don't know. I'm not convinced that Miller might be amazing. I don't know, but I still think they will use both of the, these running backs. Whereas I think if Kenneth Walker gets injured, it's Charbonnet's and off it goes.
Awesome. Wide receivers, first round, 4 back-to-back, 2021, 22, 23. Jackson Smith and Jigba went first, probably not a surprise to many. We've been mentioning Seattle and Kenneth Walker nicking into Zach Charbonnet's touches. Jackson Smith and Jigba at Seattle probably as well wasn't an ideal fantasy landing spot, was it?
No, not for the first year, but
correct.
When his name was first called, I was like, oh, I don't think I like this. But the more I've actually thought about it...
How did you go? That was very Coronation Street. Oh.
But the more I thought about it, the more actually I think it's a sneaky, decent landing spot. I think this first year he's going to be a slow burn. Yep. I don't think necessarily he's going to come and be a brilliant contributor for your team week in, week out. But I think there's a chance towards the end of the season we start to see him do a bit more. And at some point, Lockett is going to be moved on.
Is that a contract, I think, at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think they definitely have an out at the end of the season, but I think he's in contract until the end of 2024,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But still, the opportunities are going to be there. I think his talent as like a pure route runner, I think is the best in this class. So I think his talent will ultimately prevail, and I think he will certainly get his opportunity to become the wide receiver 2 in this offense. It's just going to take a bit of time.
Agreed. If you're in a PPR league and there's no one else you want, you need a receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba's the guy. And you're right. He isn't going to be a wonderful return early on, but he is going to be a PPR monster. And in the Seattle offense, I actually think that's pretty decent landing spot longer term. Quality will prevail. He will earn his dues. I don't think there's much doubt about that for me. So, Quentin Johnson went next to the Chargers.
I'm not a massive Quentin Johnson fan.
Okay.
Although I think potentially if he cleans himself up and his ability to catch and drops and things, then potentially he is going to be amazing. But where he's gone to the Chargers. You've got to bet on that, right? I think he's in a high octane offense. He's hopefully going to be able to actually spread the field a bit, extend it, make it more vertical. Everything they've been doing has been so short passes, and so I'm hoping he kind of opens up this offense a bit more. So even if he doesn't catch single pass, I think just his vertical, I do think he will be a bit more of a vertical threat for them. He's a big guy. He can do a lot after the catch. So, I think we have to bet on him and what they saw in him because he went to the Chargers. But I do think there's a chance he could also be a bust. A chance.
Ooh.
I think they're going to have to put him on the field, but I think there's a chance. I think they have to put him on the field. I think he'll certainly play this season, but I think there's a potential chance that they go, ooh, not sure that, about this.
Okay. I don't mind Quentin Johnson, and I actually like the landing spot. I think he seems almost a decent mix of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams combined, and I think there's a lot to be learned. And again, a bit like Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't think you'll maybe see a great return early in the season, but both of those guys get injured fairly frequently. So he will make the field and he will make returns. And yes, there's always a question mark, obviously, when any receivers come in the league. But I think he has the fundamentals. I think what he misses can be coached. And if he can get it right, he's on, as you say, an offense that played the most offensive snaps last year. He's got Justin Herbert, who is a more than accomplished QB. And if they can get on the field and he can sort out his hands and they can get a rapport built, you could be looking at a very long-term, decent partnership there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if he just if he develops, as we want him to, then I agree. I think he could be one of the best from this class, but he has a little bit of developing still to do, I think,
Cool.
And he just needs to do that.
So third one of those at 22, a little surprisingly, was Zay Flowers to the Ravens. Now, a lot has been said about this. You're an AFC North fan. I don't know how you feel about it. But Zay Flowers is creeping up in people's estimations. I actually don't like it. I'm not a fan of it, Hannah.
And is that because of his landing spot, because of like how he fits in the offense, or is it because it's Baltimore and they're never going to throw the ball?
It's Baltimore and they're never going to throw the ball. They've also brought in OBJ, who will command targets himself. I just see Zay Flowers being Devin Duvernay 2.0.
I actually think that obviously they've got Todd Monken now. I think they are going to throw it a little bit more than they did. I actually think that Zay has a chance to I suppose, earn or potentially win the wide receiver 1 role in this offense, because, really nobody on that offense, wide receiver wise, has shown that they can do anything at this point.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think he has the potential to be better than that. I think there's a chance that he becomes better than you expect him to be. And as I say, if he becomes that wide receiver 1, yes, I know historically Baltimore have not thrown particularly.
They don't.
Much.
And you're going to have Mark Andrews and OBJ on the field.
Yeah, but do we know what the ghost of OBJ is anymore?
No, but his ego will still command. He gets thrown the ball.
He will want the ball, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why OBJ has agreed with them. I suspect he'll want to play on the field as much as possible, but there's a chance that they rotate in and out. I don't know. I think he's got a chance here. I agree. It may end up that actually at the end of this year we say he didn't do anything. But I think he's better than Devin Duvernay, and I think he may be able to take that wide receiver 1 position.
Devin Duvernay, Rashad Bateman.
Bateman he's going to be fighting with Bateman.
James Prochet, they're all going the same way.
They do, but you never know. I'm
You're holding out hope. Hope is what kills us, Hannah.
I know, but I think I do hold a bit of hope out for the new OC. Okay. I think he is going to.
I like Todd Monken, yeah.
Yeah, I think hopefully he's going to. I don't want it to happen as a Bengals fan, but
obviously.
I think he is going to kind of overhaul this offense a little bit, and get them passing a bit more, and I think that will benefit Zay Flowers.
Fair. It remains to be seen, but for me, it's too much for me at the minute on Zay Flowers. I can't do it. So, and the one that went behind him, Jordan Addison, went to the Vikings. Again, a lot of talk on this one. Obviously, Adam Thielen, we mentioned, went off to Carolina. Jordan Addison's come in. I absolutely love this landing spot. Like, wowie. There are over 100 targets vacated by Adam Thielen leaving in the offseason. We saw in games last year that Justin Jefferson commands double coverage. Jordan Addison is going to be in a lot of one-on-one, man-v-man coverage with a lot of opportunities to get thrown the ball. And I believe at the minute he's got the talent to win his matchups, catch the ball, and pick up yards after catch as well. So Jordan Addison will get thrown the ball purely because he's on the opposite side of the field to Justin Jefferson. And that gives him opportunities. And I love that for Jordan Addison.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it also takes the pressure off of having to be, a wide receiver 1 on a team,
Yep.
Having Jefferson there, like you say, is going to demand those double coverages. Hockenson, I think, will certainly still play a role there. He did play a big one last season. I think it's just a really nice landing spot for him to kind of find his feet, especially this season, not too much pressure on him, but the ability to command a decent number of targets. I think I always think that rookies at the start of their first season, they never give us too much. Like, I don't never expect too much. But I think he could quite easily by the end of the season be one that we were like, yes, he's really contributing in my flex spot now or whatever.
Jordan Addison, early on in career, from this draft, is my wide receiver 2 behind Jackson Smith and Jigba. Long term, I actually think someone like Quentin Johnson might outperform him because of Justin Jefferson, and he will never be a wide receiver 1. I think if Quentin Johnson can sort his hands out, he can be a wide receiver 1 on that Chargers offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a safer pick, isn't he? Ultimately, what you think, what you're getting with him. He's going to be the wide receiver 2 on that offense. It's going to be 100 targets or whatever, vacated. That's what he's going to take, and that's that. But like you say, Quentin Johnston, ultimately, both of those number one, or both of the receivers that are there at the Chargers now are getting on. they're not going to be there forever. He does have the potential, if he develops, to become the wide receiver 1 on the Chargers. So I guess we're saying that his ceiling is higher, but I personally think his floor is also lower.
I think where you take them depends on your roster build here. Like, you're going to be drafting at what, 4 to 7 range these guys are in. I think you're looking at, am I competing this year? Am I not competing this year? I'm picking accordingly. If you're a man or two away, take your Jordan Addison. I think he'll give you points this year, and I think you'll love that. And I think you'll get a return on him if you wanted to sell him at the end. I think if you're going, no, I'll do well to scrape the playoffs, but next year, this season's mine, I'd be taking Quentin Johnson.
I think it also depends on how risk kind of averse or how much you like to take risks.
Yep. And in none of those positions am I taking Zay Flowers.
I know what you mean. I think Johnston certainly has a higher ceiling, and Addison potentially has the higher floor.
You can't take Zay Flowers before either of them two, no?
He sits somewhere in the middle. I wouldn't know. No. I mean, he sits behind them, doesn't he, ultimately? But, you know, ultimately he's going to sit in the middle in terms of he doesn't have a massive ceiling. I guess he potentially doesn't have a floor because he might not even get on the field. But I don't know. They've taken him in the first. I think they're going to try and get him on there and scheme him in there.
Cool. Another couple to touch on. Jonathan Mingo to Carolina, we mentioned earlier. Sound receiver, decent combine coming out. We've mentioned they've got Thielen, they've got DJ Shark and Hayden Hurst in at tight end. So Mingo, again, I think will earn a role in the years to come. I think he'll be rotated in and out this year. Player with upside. As we said, as Hannah rightly said, the receivers at Carolina aren't young. They're all old and decrepit, senile people now. So Mingo can learn from those guys and potentially develop. He's certainly an upside pick at that stage. Yeah,
I certainly think he's got a chance to become a focal point of this offense. He just needs to earn it.
2, we're going to see probably rise up ADPs from now until whenever. Jaden Reed went to the Packers at 50 and Rashee Rice went to the Chiefs at 55. Make a case for either of them if you can, Hannah, other than the fact that they're at the Packers and the Chiefs.
I mean, I think.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I think ultimately landing spot has played a massive difference, hasn't it? Played a massive part in both of these players and where we view them, in rookie drafts at this point. Both of these are wide open wide receiver rooms in which they can potentially command lots of targets. I think, Jaden Reed, I don't think I was really expecting him to go as high as he did.
No, me either. Yep.
But they obviously saw something in him and he has the opportunity. So again, I don't think I would want to. I think he would be like a late second, give him a go, because ultimately he has the opportunity to become the wide receiver 2. If he's amazing, the wide receiver, even the wide receiver 1. My concern would be Jordan Love, to be honest. Because we have no idea.
Yeah, they've still got Christian Watson. Don't forget as well, the Packers actually took a tight end before they took this wide receiver, and a decent receiving tight end as well at that. So I think in a draft, I don't draft tight ends in rookies, we know that, but I'd pick the tight end, Luke Musgrave, over Jonathan Reed at the minute, because I think that's a safer route to targets from Jordan Love.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Rice was an interesting choice, wasn't it? I don't know that I would have picked him if I was Kansas City, but they obviously like him. He can do a bit of everything, so they probably want to mix and match him and put him all over the field. Again, as individual players, I would say I'm not too bothered with their landing spots. A bit more intrigued.
The last 2 receivers I just want to really quickly touch on, went back to back, both from the same team, Tennessee Vols. Jalen Hyatt went at 73 to the Giants, and Cedric Tillman went 74 to the Browns. I
like
didn't know what to
Hyatt.
ask. I thought you were going to talk. Sorry, Hannah.
No, I do like Hyatt at the Giants because I
Do
think he
you?
brings something different to a slot receiver, which is what all they seem to have on their roster.
Yes.
And we know that the Giants can scheme things up for their wide receivers. So I actually really quite like this because
He's a
I think
great deep threat receiver.
absolutely, and I think they'll scheme him up and to get stuff. And I think even if they don't, he's going to open up that, that offense a bit more. So I quite like it because we know how good this coaching staff is, and I think they will scheme him up to get balls.
Fun. I actually watched quite closely through last season and coming in. Tillman, for me, is the better receiver. He's the better all-round receiver than Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, I feel, was raised a lot because of the end of the season he had in the college year, which was phenomenal. Tillman, for me, is the better receiver. And Tillman landing at the Browns, I really, really like. They are Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then there's a slot up for grabs. And Tillman, for me, I think, will be better than Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I will see him the end of this year, start of next year. Cedric Tillman can be the wide receiver 2 on the Browns with Deshaun Watson as QB. And if Deshaun Watson as QB can get back to the Deshaun Watson he was pre-suspension, I love that landing spot. And if you can get him late, second, early, third in your rookie drafts, take Cedric Tillman there.
Yeah, I mean,
love that.
I think ultimately he will also have to be out Elijah Moore to be the wide receiver.
Elijah
too.
Moore's not that good. We'll see that at the Jets.
I'd be interested to see what he does this season. I think he had a lot of issues this season. I'd be interested to see. Tillman might beat him out straight away, but I don't think we should forget him because I do.
So
think
they went back to back
NFL
draft. You're on the clock rookie draft.
Who do
Both
I go?
still there. Which one do you pick?
This is a tough one, isn't it? Because in the short term, I actually like Hyatt better because I think he will probably get the ball much quicker because his skill set is unique for his team, and they will want him to be on there to use it. But Tillman has the potential to be the wide receiver too. I think it's a toss-up, to be honest.
It's one of those you're going to have 50-50 split.
Yeah, exactly.
You know when you do your rookie drafts, go, well, I took Hyatt last time. I'm going to take Tillman this time and spread my losses.
Because it is at this point, 2 to 3, it is going to be a dart throw, right? And it's like, which one ultimately is going to stick? Who is going to play well enough that they end up being a starter on their team in the longer term? And at this point, I think you could argue that for both of them to becoming a decent starter and for both of them to flame out. So I think I would, alternate if I could.
I'll have a bit of both, but for me, I think if Tillman didn't have the injury, he'd have been a second round NFL pick, which for me puts him early second in rookie drafts. So if I can I will have more Tillman than Hyatt, I think, without a doubt, because I think you take the better player available according to you and your ranks and how you work and what you do. Tillman, for me, is a better player than Jalen Hyatt. I'll sprinkle some Hyatt in, especially in best ball. I think in best ball, Hyatt's role this year and next year could be phenomenal, as you say, because he's got a superb skill set that is unique on his roster as it stands. And if he scores you points, he's going to score big points because he isn't the kind of guy that's going to get 8-yard catches here and there. He's going to get screens and he's going to go for big yards after catch. So,
I mean, I agree. I think that's very fair. Best ball, then maybe Hyatt, tips it. Yeah. If it's more of a redraft type, in season, then maybe Tillman would be
super.
A better choice.
Really quickly then, tight ends. We're getting on a bit, so we'll run for it quick. There was rumours pre-NFL draft, as many as 4, maybe even 5 could go first round. Absolute ludicrousy, obviously. Why would people do that? We did see 1 go first round. Dalton Kincaid went to the Bills. Josh Allen is apparently incredibly excited about it, and so he should be. Is Dalton Kincaid almost viewable as a wide receiver 2 on that Buffalo Bills side now?
It's possible. It is possible. Now, I am not a massive draft tight ends in my rookie draft
Me neither.
person, but
Yep.
I do think I would maybe take a punt on Kincaid with the understanding that I don't think he's going to be, as good as he is going to be for the first season, but I think he could contribute. I think he could end up being a bit of a Pat Freiermuth. Freiermuth did actually contribute reasonably well in his rookie season, and I think Dalton Kincaid could probably do the same. But I actually think his ceiling is higher than Pat Freiermuth. Like, I think ultimately in a few years' time, there's a chance that he ends up being one of these elite tight ends, which you are looking to draft earlier on. So I would take a punt on him. Most of the time, I choose not to, because I just don't see the point of them hanging around.
The problem is in rookie drafts, Dalton Kincaid's going to cost you a first-round pick.
Absolutely. And I do think in a tight end premium draft, I would consider it.
Yeah.
Depends where I am. I am.
10 to 12.
Yeah, first half, no, thank you. Tight end premium later on, why not?
Fair. Rest of the guys that kind of way. Sam Laporta went to the Lions. Michael Mayer went to the Raiders, who we know are desperate for a tight end. Luke Musgrave, we've already mentioned, went to the Packers before they picked a receiver. Luke Schoonmaker went to the Dallas Cowboys. Any interest in picking those guys up?
I do. I'm intrigued. I do like most of those landing spots, to be honest. I think they do have an opportunity to contribute. I personally probably wouldn't draft them myself. I would see how they go over this season, and then maybe look to trade for them if I really wanted them at the end of the season, rather than have them hanging around on my rosters. Probably not doing a lot, but I'm certainly intrigued, and I think this class is interesting. I think we could have some contributors, coming out of it for sure.
I agree. I like Schoonmaker at the Cowboys, probably the best of the rest, if you will. But yeah, it's interesting. Anything else to add, Hannah? That was kind of our look back. Any major bits?
I think just quickly before we go, Dan, I think we have to mention that your sleeper pick guy, Keaton Mitchell.
Do you know what I really wanted? Day 3, and I was watching the draft, Hannah. I wanted the Bengals to pick him. One, I think he'd be great for that Bengals offense. I think he fits. And 2, I wanted you to root for him as much as I want to root for him, Hannah. And do you know where he's signed? Do you know where he's signed?
The Ravens.
He's signed for the Ravens.
I know. I was like, I'm going to have to look at where he's signed, because obviously you've been talking about him for months. And I was like, oh, the Ravens, how awful.
Yep. So now you're not going to root for him at all. No. And I will be. So this is going to be painful as it goes on. But I actually don't mind it. The Ravens are a side. J.K. Dobbins has come out of this draft as one of those winners. They've got Gus Edwards. Who else they got on the roster? J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. Keaton Mitchell can earn one of them 53 spots on that roster.
Yes. I mean, I'm not
and he will.
He'll do much on the field, but I wouldn't be choosing him. I personally probably wouldn't be choosing him.
You won't have a chance. I'm taking him before you even get there in most of our leagues. So.
Oh, that's good. I mean, to me,
I'd take him over Zay Flowers any day.
Oh no, please! He wouldn't be my dart throw pick. I think there are probably others that.
Yeah, I wanted him to land somewhere better than the Ravens.
Yeah, I think it's just a shame where he ended up. He's a bit too deep on that chart, I think.
Just on the note of undrafted free agents and running backs while we're there, Sean Tucker went to my Buccaneers. Now, health concerns, I think, are what caused him to fall out of the draft. But for me, he was one of the best skill players not drafted in this draft. And Tampa, we could have done with a running back. We've got Rashad White. Other than that, there isn't a lot there. Sean Tucker will see the field this season. Without a doubt, he will see the field this season.
It's just whether he can stay healthy enough to see it, right?
You'd like to think the organisation would do their research and would only pick him up and acquire him if that's there, right? So if you talk about dart throw, Keaton Mitchell, I love Keaton Mitchell. I'm going to be having a fair share of Tucker in there as well, but instead of Mitchell maybe in places.
Yeah, well, why not? Like you say, I think he has a perfectly reasonable opportunity if he can stay healthy enough to get on that field. So
Yep,
at that stage, why wouldn't you?
indeed. Well, thanks for rubbing it in that Keaton Mitchell didn't get drafted.
I didn't bring it up to start with. You've got to blame Nate for that.
Yeah, sorry, Nate. Hannah, anything else that you want to add before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I really enjoyed chatting over it. I mean, I know we didn't get to everyone, but there's plenty of weeks yet to come for us to chat about things. So I'm sure we will chat about some of the more intriguing landing spots for some of the other players too.
Yeah.
Moving on to next week, I think it was just good to go back over, see what we thought from the draft, and
Yeah, you got instinct counts for a lot in this game, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And trust your gut. So you said, yeah, next week we're hoping to have a guest on, so that'd be fun, and we're going to have a look at your rookie drafts in a bit more depth and how you can try and win those. And by winning drafts, I think we say it's always about finding the best player available at a spot and earning the value. So we're going to have someone join us and talk us through how they go about it. And then, yeah, the coming weeks, I'm sure we will dig back into these and, you know, as training camps and OTAs and things start, have a look at quite how these guys are shaping up. We talked about the running backs here. There's still a lot of vet running backs on this free market. Ezekiel Elliott's out there. Leonard Fournette's still out there. As much as we like these backfields, they could all be thrown up and set on fire very quickly if Leonard Fournette rocks up in one of them, for instance. So there's a lot to learn still and a lot to see. So we'll go into a little bit more depth, maybe do a little series, Hannah, perhaps a show on each position and run from there. So, yeah, guys, if you've got any ideas or anything you want us to cover off, anything you want us to go through, get in touch at 5 Yard Dynasty, or you can see mine and Hannah's tags on the screen. Drop us a line. Other than that, Hannah, it is great to have you on board. I know you've had a lot going on outside of fantasy for a while now. That has thankfully ended. I am excited to start this 5 Yard journey. I am excited that we're doing it together. I can't wait to see what we can bring to people.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Dan. Can't wait. And we're going to have a great episode next week. So people should definitely tune in.
Awesome. Hannah, I will see you next Tuesday. Guys, thanks for listening if you still are. And until next week, keep rushing.